I have to tell you that I enjoy the Chris Wallace shows on Fox more than any other show, though I don't always agree with the opinions that I can discern from Chris. One thing that cannot be denied, he will ask some tough questions and he will follow up on them. This particular interview is with Newt Gingrich. And again, though, obviously I don't agree with Newt Gingrich on a lot of the issues. One thing I will say about Newt, and especially in this interview, Newt did answer the questions that were posed to him.
Outside the Beltway at the California State Capitol in Sacramento just 2 days before the primary there. Joining me now here in Washington to discuss the escalating war of words between Clinton and Trump is one of Trump's big supporters, potential running mate and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, welcome back to Fox News.
It's good to be back.
Clinton, as we just pointed out in the last segment, went after Trump's temperament this week, saying that he's unfit to be president. And one of the things that Trump did this week was repeatedly accuse the judge who's handling 2 Trump University fraud lawsuit cases of bias. Here he is.
We're building a wall. He's a Mexican. We're building a wall between here and Mexico. The answer is he is giving us very unfair rulings that people can't even believe.
Are you comfortable with a potential president attacking a federal judge for his heritage?
No. This is one of the worst mistakes Trump has made. I think it's inexcusable. He has every right to criticize a judge, and he has every right to say certain decisions are right, and his attorneys can file to move the venue from the judge. But first of all, this judge was born in Indiana. He is an American, period. When you come to America, you get to become an American. And Trump, who has grandparents who came to the U.S., should understand this as much as anybody. Second, to characterize, if a liberal were to attack Justice Clarence Thomas on the grounds that he's black, we would all go crazy. Every conservative would say it was wrong, and it was racism. And Trump has got to, I think, move to a new level. This is no longer the primaries. He's no longer an interesting contender. He is now the potential leader of the United States, and he's got to move his game up to the level of being a potential leader.
Okay, I got to give brownie points to Newt on this one, and he actually used the magic word, racism. So, kudos to Newt for basically calling it the way that it is. Unlike Mitch McConnell, who basically danced around the question and absolutely would not answer. Newt came straight out, so I got to tip my hat to him on this.
Consider what he did here, racism?
I think that it was a mistake. I think that I hope it was sloppiness. He says on other occasions that he has many Mexican friends, etc., but that's irrelevant. This judge is not Mexican. This judge is an American citizen and deserves to be treated. Now, that means he can attack him as a judge and say he's a liberal and he's against me and he's doing things I don't agree with. And he has lawyers who are supposed to be doing that. If it's a good case, they should file a change of venue.
Trump,
Okay, got subtract a point or two because Chris asked him if the comment was an example of racism, and though he said it the first time, he wouldn't repeat the magic word the second time. Still, all in all, he's ahead.
So, attacked the media this week for trying to check up to find out whether, in fact, he had given the donations he promised to veterans groups. Here he is.
What I don't want is when I raise millions of dollars, have people say, like this sleazy guy right over here from ABC. He's a sleaze in my book. You're a sleaze because you know the facts, and you know the facts well.
Now, you have been known to go after reporters, including me, but Trump has gone much further. He is literally kicking reporters whose coverage he doesn't like out of public rallies.
Okay, and just for you guys who didn't see it, and I saw it live, Trump went after reporters at that initial press conference, all of the reporters that he went after were all of Hispanic heritage. And that wasn't a fact that was widely publicized. And the guy that got kicked out of the Trump rally, who was there legally, had acquired a ticket and was sitting quietly, typing on his laptop. They approached him, they questioned him, and for no reason kicked him out. And he was Hispanic as well.
Can you understand why some conservatives worry whether or not Trump understands the role of a free press and the First Amendment?
You know, the thing that struck me, particularly after this event, FDR in the 1930s invented the fireside radio chat to get past all the conservative newspapers. Trump now has a big enough social media presence that he can take on most of the news media, and it's a fair fight. And I think part of what he's probably decided is that he wants to be very aggressive to make sure that his supporters routinely discount any kind of news media attack.
Yeah, but that I can understand. Kicking reporters out of rallies?
I think that's silly, and I think that doesn't get him very far. I mean, if they ask my advice, I'd say get used to the idea you're going to have reporters around you don't like, and then you live with it. That's part of being a public figure.
All right, so Newt gets a few more points for candid comments regarding Trump's fight with media.
This brings us to Clinton's foreign policy speech this week, where more than his ideas, she went after his temperament, his fitness to be president. Here she is.
This is not someone who should ever have the nuclear codes, because it's not hard to imagine Donald Trump leading us into a war just because somebody got under his very thin skin. Now imagine Donald Trump sitting in the Situation Room, making life or death decisions on behalf of the United States.
When Trump, let's review the bidding here, attacks a judge for his heritage, when he kicks reporters out of open public rallies, when he attacks the Republican governor of New Mexico, which you yourself said was destructive, doesn't that raise questions about his steadiness?
Of course it does. And that's why Trump's at one of the most interesting turning points in American history. And think of it this way. He won the nomination as a golfer. It was him. He was the only guy on the field. He made all the decisions, and he beat everybody. I mean, it's one of the most amazing marches to a nomination in American history. Now he's in a team sport, more like football. I mean, Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, has to know what Trump's doing. Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate, has to know what Trump's doing. Republican governors have to be able to relax around him and not worry about getting attacked. This is a fundamental change for Trump, and we'll see. I mean, I've been amazed at his speed of growth, how fast he learns. I think he's now at a very key turning point. But Hillary also has a different problem, and that is results rather than words. The biggest story this week politically.
Before we start talking about Hillary, you talk about Trump learning fast. Some of the things that he's doing are anti-common sense. I mean, come on. You are attacking a judge who is not going to recuse himself. Okay? And he is going to basically decide your case. And you're not even going to attack him on factual stuff regarding the case and pointing that out. Your main attack is because he's a Mexican. Come on. Number one, he's not a Mexican. He's an American with Mexican heritage. Just like you are an American with whatever the Polish or European heritage that you have. Ridiculous.
It was 38,000 jobs being created, the lowest number in 5 years. The biggest problem for Hillary is her record. You raised it yourself earlier, not to pick on you, but you said correctly, Libya is a total disaster. The Russian reset is an absurdity. Syria is a complete mess. Iraq is still in the middle of a war. Afghanistan is in the middle of a war. Somalia has collapsed. And by the way, we just found a Somalian war criminal, an alleged war criminal, who was working as a security guard at Dulles Airport. I mean, there are enough things that in the results zone that Hillary can't deal with, that while she's winning on words, the reason she can't put away the nomination is the results are so bad.
But you talk about Trump being at a turning point.
I think he is.
Let me argue that you're at a turning point too, because you have been a Trump supporter, and there is talk about you as a potential running mate. At some point, don't you have to take stock? I mean, you've raised a lot of questions about his behavior today and say whether or not you can continue to support this man.
Well, compared to Hillary Clinton, I can support Donald Trump all year. Hillary Clinton will be an absolute disaster for the United States. She'll appoint left-wing judges who will move this country for a century into a world I don't believe in. And her foreign policy, the results of her foreign policy are a disaster.
And despite the...
Okay. And that's the beauty of this election. The guys on the right are making those claims, and the guys on the left are making the same exact claims. They're making the claims that Trump's idea of foreign policy is going to, at the minimum, screw up all our relationships with our allies and potentially lead us into what could be a nuclear war, one. As far as the Supreme Court, Trump, if he keeps his word, and who knows about that, has the potential, if he becomes president, to nominate and have seated 3 ultra-conservative Supreme Court justices, which would, in effect, destroy us socially for the next 100 years. I mean, every argument that the GOP is making against Clinton, that same argument can be made by the Democrats about Donald Trump. So this is going to be an election of attrition.
We're talking about you would still...
She is a much more flawed person than Donald. I mean, first of all, somebody who will not release her speeches for which she got $250,000 apiece, accusing Trump of lack of transparency, shows you that chutzpah is at the core of the Clinton model.
Well, one could argue his not releasing his tax returns, but that he's got some chutzpah too.
See, and they're laughing because these guys are pretty much the same, except one's on the left and one's on the right. The only thing that Clinton has in her favor is she's been releasing her tax returns for the last 25 years, and these guys have climbed through them, and they find very little. You can always find something climbing through a complicated tax return. But these guys, can't find a smoking gun. And Trump, knowing this, he absolutely is not going to release his tax returns. Now, I believe there is something in the transcripts of the Clinton speeches. I have no doubt in my mind there's something in there. All right? So, quid pro quo, Trump's tax returns, transcripts on Clinton speeches, we're going to call that one a wash.
But I also remember, and you'll remember this, in 1980, as late as Labor Day, Ronald Reagan had 3 or 4 days in a row that were a disaster. And all of us who were for Reagan are going, oh my God, what's going to happen? They got their act together. By mid-September, they were on the way to one of the biggest victories over an incumbent in American history.
Okay, let's turn to another subject, because Trump, as we pointed out, is attacking Clinton's ethics. Both Clintons back in the 90s, the Clinton Foundation, the private email servers. Now she is going after him. Take a look.
It turns out it wasn't until the press shamed him that he actually made the donations he had promised. He is trying to scam America the way he scammed all those people at Trump U.
Just as I asked John Podesta about Clinton, won't it be hard for Donald Trump to play the ethics card against Clinton?
Well, first of all, anybody who's read Clinton Cash or anybody who has an understanding of Peter Schweizer's work knows
All right, just for those of you that don't know the name Peter Schweizer, that guy hates the Clintons, and he's penned several books, and the books are filled with things that are not actually factual. So for him to bring his name up, Schweitzer doesn't have a lot of credibility, depending, no matter what side you're on, if you really are interested in the truth.
Hillary.
This is about the Clinton Foundation.
That's not the Clinton Foundation. It's about all sorts of deals. It's about the misuse of the State Department. I mean, you have to love the degree to which Hillary lives in an alternative universe in which nothing she has done counts against whatever she says next. And on Trump University, Trump has a simple assignment. Find 5 people who are graduates who are willing to go on TV and say, you know, my life was improved, my income went up, it was a good experience. If he does that, then his goal has to be that on results, he is always better than Hillary. On words, she may occasionally be better.
That is a bunch of baloney. I think he's already found 5 people that are willing to swear that Trump U was a great experience. Unfortunately, the 5 people they found have some type of financial tie to Donald Trump. Now, for those of you who don't know it, there were tons of people that went to the initial seminars, paid money, were dissatisfied, and requested refunds. When the amount of people requesting refunds hit 25% of the enrollees, that's when Trump U stopped issuing refunds and started fighting with the enrollees. So if everybody loved Trump U so much, and this is documented, why did at least 25% of them ask for and receive refunds, and why did they stop issuing refunds to the additional people that wanted them?
All right, this week we saw clearly the most violent protests yet against Trump, with brutal attacks, and we have them up on the screen, brutal attacks against Trump supporters leaving rallies. Clinton has condemned the violence, and at least in San Jose, it seems the protests were organized by immigrants, not Democrats. Question, if these violent anti-Trump rallies continue into the convention, into the fall, how do you see it factoring into the campaign?
Now notice, at least Chris was pretty much fair about this one. He said the protests that occurred in San Jose were pretty much generated by immigrants, not Democrats, not Bernie supporters, not Clinton supporters, immigrants.
You'll become enraged. I mean, the fact is, you go look at Madison, Wisconsin, where there were huge demonstrations against the elected governor, Scott Walker, the elected legislature, doing exactly what they won the election on. If Donald Trump is serious about changing Washington, every federal employee union will be in the streets. Because the first thing you have to do to be serious is make it possible to fire corrupt, dishonest, and illegal
workers. A conceivable backlash where people say Trump is just too divisive?
No, I think when people see the American flag being burned, they don't side with the people burning the American flag. I think it drives Hillary and Sanders into a very narrow box. This is 1968 all over again. This is the hard left saying, if you don't do what we want, we're going to be physically violent, and we're going to pick on some woman who can't defend herself. I don't.
Now that to me seemed a little suspect. Okay, and honestly, anybody that was throwing food and eggs or whatever at that woman should get their asses kicked. Okay, that being said, why did nobody come to that lady's defense? I mean, there were people that were behind her inside of whatever that facility was that basically just stood there and took taking pictures. Nobody came to that woman's defense. And again, like I said, anybody that was throwing stuff or physically attacking that woman should get their ass kicked. Now, more so than that, where the hell were the cops? They basically just stood by and let go on what went on when they knew damn well and had a history of seeing what should be done by the Orange County police officers and also the police officers down in San Diego. So either somebody gave them marching orders just to stand by and not do anything. And again, whoever did that, they need to get their ass kicked. But when that woman got attacked, that basically, that did it for me. Exciting. I just felt like, the people doing that were basically just not right. Just not right. I mean, I'm searching for words here to describe it, and it's almost indescribable as far as my feelings for the people that basically assaulted that woman.
I think that is sustainable, and I think the American people will be repulsed by the idea that the hard left gets to dictate to the rest of us.
Finally, you have said some very candid and tough things, critical things about Trump today. Do you ever say that to him?
Sure.
I mean, are you that candid? You say
yes. The great thing about Donald Trump is that he listens, but he doesn't necessarily obey. I have to say, as a former teacher. But he's very open to direct conversation. He actually prefers people who are blunt and direct with him because he knows how big his ego is. He knows how big a personality he is, and he knows that it takes a fair amount to break through in that. But I'm very comfortable being as direct with Trump.
And sometimes after you've said it, does he then go back and do it again?
There's some habits he has I don't agree with, and then there's some tactics he has I don't agree with. But I can also say there have been occasions where it's actually had an impact. So I feel like it's a very good relationship. I think that he is a remarkable leader. I had no idea a year ago that we'd be where we are now, and I think that is almost entirely a personal achievement in alliance with the American people who are sick of the current system.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Thanks for your time. Always good to talk with you, sir.
All right, so again, I think that was an excellent interview by Chris Wallace. Newt Gingrich was pretty solid, much more solid than Mitch McConnell was with his interview on Meet the Press.